tonight we have Mr. Saravanan. He is a hard money lender, and he specializes in loan for real estate investors. He does all sorts of real estate lending for purchases, for flips, and transactional lending for wholesalers. He has been in the business of doing that for 25 years, and as I understand, he's a second generation real estate investor. Without stealing too much more of his thunder, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to turn it over to our honored guest. Please welcome Mr. Saravanan. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Saravanan. I am a private lender, or hard money lender for real estate purposes. I started real estate quite young, probably close to right out of college. So if you're here listening, coming out of college, you could still think of being in real estate as well. Of course, when you are very young, the chances are you have different things to chase instead of real estate as well. So you can always try to plan your, dig your well when you're not thirsty, you know. So real estate is one vehicle where you can start building with money, without money, as long as you have a right type of projects that you want to do, okay? So today I'm going to share a little bit about a different type of lending I do. Some people call me private lender, hard money lender. It all depends on how you look at it, okay? So just for disclaimer purposes, whatever I say, take it as for fun, entertainment. When it comes to investment, use your own due diligence and talk to anybody that you know, expert in this field, so that you make right decisions. There are different types of real estate. One of the real estate transaction is called wholesaling, right? Wherein someone, Eddie may buy it from Dakota, who's a seller for, he wants to sell his house for 80,000. Eddie may have a contract for 80,000, and Sam at the very end wants to buy it for 100,000. So now Eddie can do an assignment of contract wherein either the buyer or the seller, one of them will know if the margin is going to make, right? So this is called assignment of contract for wholesaling. Usually when it is a profit margin is more than $10,000, sometimes the buyer, seller may get freaked out and they try to back out of the contract or find a way to get out of the contract because they feel unhappy that there's a bigger spread in between. So as a wholesaler, if there's a bigger margin, then you can do something called, we call it double closing or transactional funding. So the way it works is Eddie would buy it from Dakota at 80,000, and Eddie is the buyer and Dakota is the seller. Now, Eddie is going to turn around and sell it for 100,000, and everything happens on the same day. Like Eddie will buy from Dakota at 10 a.m. in the morning, and he's going to sell it for Sam like 10:30 or 10:15 or in another room. Okay, so Eddie is going to use someone like me, whom they call it as a transactional funding source. Okay, the benefit of this one is the transaction between Eddie and Dakota is known only to them, and Dakota is thinking he's selling it for 80 and Eddie is buying it for 80. The closing is done, and now Dakota is out of the picture. Now Eddie is going to sell it to Sam for $100,000, and no one knows the transaction except Sam and then Eddie. So when you have a bigger margin, you can always use someone like me, who call a transactional funding source, right? So when we do transactional funding, normally we charge about 1.5% of the funding cost, with a minimum of $1,000 to $1,500 minimum. Anything over $100,000, we charge flat fee of 1.5%. Okay, so that's about transactional funding for wholesalers. So people do wholesaling in different ways. People do wholesaling either through direct marketing, banded signs, yellow letter campaign, postcard campaigns, or door knocking, but make sure whatever is legal in the city or county that you work in. So those are the different things about wholesaling, and also how someone can use our funding source. So the next type of projects is called the rehabbing or flip type projects. So when someone is relatively new in real estate, they can do a simple renovations. I remember quite many years ago, we bought a house in Clinton Township, I believe, like for $60,000. I don't think you can buy a house like that for a $60,000 in Clinton Township anymore. That too, it's between 15 miles Nash and Groesbeck area. So you can buy a house, let's say, for $60,000, and then spend like $10,000-15,000 minor work, right? You know, or $20,000. It's more like put a new cabinet, put a new countertop, maybe put a new tile in the bathroom, because most people will look for a nicer remodeled bathroom and the kitchen, right? So it's easy maintenance and it's very appealing for the new homeowner to move in. So if you're relatively new in the business and if you have a limited capital, I would encourage you to think in a way where you can do a simple rehab flip type projects, okay? And once you get used to it, then you can look into the next little bit more advanced type of renovations, okay? When I say advanced type of renovations, could be you may buy it for $100,000, but now your rehab budget could be $50,000 or $60,000. This could be changing the whole roof, new furnace, new hot water tank, redo the electrical because it's an old type of electrical, new flooring, or refinish the hardwood floor. It's a lot of bigger project. The reason I encourage you guys to start at a smaller project and go to a bigger project is because it's like a kid, right? When you are new or very small, you try to learn to crawl and then learn to walk and then start to run. So if you have to start running from the beginning, you end up in falling because you have to first learn to walk. So it's a similar concept that you want to think about, okay? So initially start with a smaller flip where the risk is very low, and then go to a little bit more higher amount of renovations. And if you have a lot more experience, then you can go to a little next level where type of rehab. These could be the remodeling, bigger remodeling. You change the layout. Maybe the layout is very weird, you change the layout. Or maybe it's a bungalow type, maybe you can convert it to a colonial. So we have done projects where it's kind of a bungalow or it's a ranch. So we built a second level on top of a garage and then made the bungalow into a colonial type, right? Or sometimes it's a smaller colonial, but then you extend if the backyard is very big or the side yard is very big, then you extend it on the side or in the back. Just make sure you get all the zoning, architectural, and the city approval permits so that you are compliant with the code and regulations. So once you have more experience, you can think of projects like this. So one thing you have to realize is the bigger projects has a bigger risk and a bigger return too. But same time, if you make a big mistake, you may get buried. It's like trying to swim in an ocean with a lot of tide in it, right? If you try to go in the first time, maybe you're lucky enough to come out of it, but you may get drowned also. So that's the reason I'm encouraging first try to go on a still swimming pool, learn a little bit, then maybe on a beach close by, then you go learn next level. So similar thinking I'd encourage you to do, okay? So when you do the rehab, like I said, do smaller projects, a little bit bigger, then a little bit bigger. And if you're still more adventurous, then you can even make a 2,000 square feet home into a 3,000 square feet home, or build a new construction also, okay? So those are different types of renovation type projects you can do. When it comes to lending, we would lend for the purchase and we would lend on the renovations, okay? Sometimes I have people who have their own capital to work with, so for them, we fund sometimes just the purchase alone and they have enough money for the renovations. Sometimes I have people who has money for purchase and rehab, and they may get another new deal come by, so now they want to use somebody else's money to do the other project because this project is still in progress. So based on your circumstances, borrow money wisely that makes financial sense for you. Okay. Normally, we used to fund occasionally 100% of the project, but because of some glitches from the project management side for the end buyers, so we ended up in shifting to maybe 70, 80, 85% of the purchase depending on the type of project and locations, and maybe 50, 60% of the renovation cost that will be in draws. Okay. Maybe can I address all your questions at the very end if it's okay for you? Because of the video reasons, that's all. I will answer for you, no problem. I'll still hang around a little bit, so not a problem. Encourage you to think in terms of how to handle renovations in a proper way. Let's say if you are relatively new and you don't have enough money or expertise to do a project, maybe I would suggest to think somebody in an event like this, like a mart mapping, and there could be other people in the area that you live and would have real estate gatherings. I would encourage you to maybe attend some of them in person and not video all the time. And you meet other people who might have some capital to work with or experience to do with the project. So based on the capital they can support or based on the experience, you could share a profit with them. Okay. So rather than not making any money at all, sharing profit in a way for you to learn is a good idea to think about. Okay. So that's how you think out of the box way to either bring in capital for the down payment or bring in expertise for the project. I hope it makes sense for all of you guys. Okay. So the other things in renovation, sometimes people ask me, hey, I work full time, can I do this business? Or I work, or maybe and my wife work full time, things like that. As long as you're a person who can manage the project and finances and time wisely, you could do it. But let's say your work is very demanding, you have to drive an hour and a half one way to work, then this may or may not be right time for you to do a rehab type projects. But as long as you have enough manageable time and resources, you can do this project part-time or full-time. In my experience, I have people work with me part-time on real estate. They work full-time in their current career, either as an engineer or a handyman, or they work as a HVAC guy, or they work in a work in a Best Buy, a totally different field, which is or an insurance agent, and they can still do this business part-time. So just make sure you manage your time and money wisely, so you can always do this business part-time or full-time. It's your choice. Okay? Because believe me, money is money. It doesn't matter you work or you work in real estate. But make sure you enjoy the process. If you're a person who doesn't like working with people or who doesn't like handling contractors, then you have to find somebody who can handle that well before you can do the renovation type projects. See, some of this, sometimes it may be as strange as it sounds. It's the beginning of the year, so I want you to encourage to rethink your goals also. Okay, I ask my kids to write down their goals. My kids right now was in high school and college. I used to encourage them to write goals even when they are probably, I don't know, maybe they're in middle school. Okay, the reason goals is very important is because goals are the one that drive you. Okay. So the goals could be a family goal, spiritual goal, financial goal, and your health goal also. Okay, because you could be very, very healthy, but you don't have much money, then it's not a good choice. But you may have a lot of money and your health is not good. That's not a good choice also. Okay, so I'd encourage you to write a goal. Your goal could be a goal for this year, goal for next 5 years, and goal for long term. I've been writing goals for, I don't know, maybe 20 years or so. I've been writing goals. I showed my kids what I had a goal in year 2098, Many of the goals looks funny right at this point of time, Maybe you may have a different goals. It could be vacations. So treat real estate as a vehicle to achieve that goal. Let's say you want to retire 5 years early, right? So maybe think, I can do one wholesaling in every 6 months, make 10 grand, 10 grand, make, so that will be 20 grand a year. And then I do it for 5 years, power of compounding and things like that. Or you make 2 flips a year, each flip make 20,000, make 40,000. So whatever your goal is, see this real estate can be a vehicle that can help you support that goal. It could be your getting married goal, or you want your spouse to be at home, or you want to help your parents. They need another $10,000 for medical expenses, and see if you can do one more flip. Okay, so sometimes when I have to think, oh, I have to send kids to college, I have to do this, then mentally the next thing I think is, okay, I have to do one more funding this month. Okay, I have to do 2 more transactions in the next 6 months. So it's very important you write down the goal. And another thing is, goal is not something you write it and forget it. Goal is something you see at least twice a day. You may not like it, and my kid sometimes doesn't like it, but I have to keep telling them, The reason you see your goal twice a day is that it goes into your head a lot. Oh, I didn't do anything in real estate for the last 2 days. Okay, let me do something. Okay, so have a goal and a dream, especially at the beginning of the year. So I think that will help you to drive a lot. And tie up how portion of the goal can be tied up to real estate. So you are tying, hey, you want to go for a Hawaii for a vacation. Okay, that may cost 10 grand with you, your spouse, whatever, or Jamaica, whatever. Then you tie down, okay, let me do 1 wholesaling, 2 wholesaling that can supplement my income to go to Hawaii. Okay, so think of a way, or if a certain amount of debt, you can offload that also. That's one of my slides I have. I think I talked about flip funding. Main thing is when you do renovations, make sure you follow all the codes. Don't try to shortcut it. Certain things you can shortcut. Of course, if you want to drywall patch, yeah, you don't need a permit for that. You don't need an expert person. Maybe you can do on your own or whatever. But anything that you think that is risky in a consumer point of view, like electrical is a risky in a consumer point of view. Plumbing is a risk in a consumer point of view. HVAC system is a risk. So anything that you feel is risk, I encourage you to make sure you get a permit, so that way you don't get into trouble down the road of the buyers getting scared away that there's no permit in the building. And if something happens in the future, people don't come back to you that you scam them or they try. I have seen people go through those situations. I have people change entire electrical plumbing, and down the road some issues would come. I had somebody change the roof, and something happened, and the new owner's insurance company tried to get back the person who sold the house. So try to make sure, you have to treat it as a cost of doing business. Okay, so I'd encourage you to do anything that is substantial, get a permit. So that way you feel good at night sleeping, and the person who's going to buy your home also feel safe and comfortable too. Of course, things may not be under control. Maybe you change the roof, what you think is right, and the city approved it, but some other problem came which you were not aware of, that is not in your control. But genuinely try your best to make sure you do what is right in long-term purposes. I had some examples here. Maybe I'll try to read them through, because unfortunately I couldn't project anything today. So here is an example of a home. We bought it from a seller for $117,000. We rehabbed for $35,000, and then we sold it for $180,000 for this project. So we borrowed the money for this loan, which costed us like 2 points, about $1,000 processing cost, and about 7 months of interest we paid, which is 8 grand. So I believe we paid about 7, 8, about $10,000-12,000 is our cost of doing business, and this project went reasonably well. Okay, so we make decent amount of profit on this transaction. Okay, so this is a transaction that happened in October 2022 in Warren. Okay, so find a transaction that makes financial sense. Actually, if you realize, if you are new to flipping, you would know there is a purchase price. When you purchase, the title company would cost some transaction fee for them, and sometimes you have to pay the forward-looking taxes, property taxes, and you have to pay the insurance for the property. So those are some of your expenses at the time of purchase. And of course the cost of renovation. And even for the cost of renovation, you may have to budget 5-10% error depending on the amount of work. Because as much as love everyone, people are people. I had someone who did like 10 electrical work, no problem. Guess what? On the 11th job, he took a $600 down payment. I never saw him for a month. No text response, no answering phone calls, nothing. And then I have to hire somebody else, you know. So sometimes people are, I don't know why, but they change, you know. So you have to budget for unexpected errors. I had a guy who pulled the permit. I think he came and installed the hot water tank, and then I gave the money to him in full. But unfortunately, I think that is a point where the code for the exhaust from the hot water pipe have changed. And because of the city wanted, even though it's an old house, but because you put a new tank, the city wanted to update the code. So because the change of code, and that guy never showed up again. And the city is not willing to approve. I tried calling him many times. 2 months have gone, but he never showed up. So I had to hire somebody else and redo the permit again and get it done. You know, so unfortunately, you have to budget for 5-10% error for the renovations. Okay. Some are under your control, some are not in your control. You know, another example is I remember 2x4s used to be like $2.50 when before COVID, right? Somewhere along the COVID, it went up to $13 a piece. Okay, so I remember sometimes I had to buy 300 of those pieces, 400 of those pieces for a big reconstruction. So the drywall cost went up too. You know, luckily the housing prices went up, so the amount of money that we have to put in the project finally recouped on the back end. Okay, but also remember I have done flips in 2007, 8, and 9. Guess what? The market was dropping too. Okay, so I've seen markets dropping, I've seen markets a little bit flat, and I've seen the markets going up. So just always make sure you factor in the cost of rehab with some amount of risk for any issues or challenges that may come along the way. Okay. So I think that's one example of the flip funding. So I had a picture to show, but maybe another occasion I can show. This is a Royal Oak home where we kept the foundation pretty much, and then we built it everything from scratch after that. So the other type of funding we do is, it's called a rental funding. There are many types of rentals. Okay, I have a handful of some we sold. We had one rental where like somewhere in the Mount Pleasant area. It's a nice. I think our project cost us like 300,000. It's a big lot, nice fancy home. So people want to come for a vacation for a 3 days, 4 days week. They come enjoy, go around the neighborhood. So you can always do a rental project, and you can use funding from somebody like me. You know, so you can borrow someone like me, rehab it, do Airbnb, VRBO, or however you want to market for your short-term rental. You do a rental. And then either you can sell them, keep them, refinance, and pay us off as a hard money or a private lender. So you can always drop it down to a low interest rate, right? So that's one way to do is Airbnb type rentals. As long as just make sure that numbers make sense for the neighborhood. Okay, we have one somewhere on the Algonac Lake neighborhood. Just it is connected to the lake canal, so. We have someone who comes in winter time for like ice fishing too. You know, in summer they want to dock the boat, do the fishing, dock the boat, get the fish, barbecue the backyard, you know, things like that. So you can do Airbnb type rentals if that makes financial sense for you. You can also do insurance type rentals wherein we have a property where we have the insurance company and agents. The house gets burned down or the flood in the home. So they want a temporary place for 2 months, 3 months, 1 month until the house gets completed. So the insurance will pay the top dollars as long as you do a furnished rental for them. Okay, so that's another type of rental project if that makes financial sense for you. So basically you can buy a home in an area where you think there's a market for it. rehab it, rent it. After a few months, you can pay us off, or you can keep paying us whenever you think makes financial sense. So usually when you borrow loan from us, you can always initially borrow, and we have people pay down the principal. I have people pay down 10,000 at a time every few months, or 25,000 every year, based on their other income sources. So you can do rentals, and you can pay down the principal, so your net profit goes up also. So the other type of rentals people do is hospital, nursing kind of a thing, so, and corporate housing also. You have companies wherein they would have somebody from Atlanta come to Michigan for a month, or things like that, or some shortage of nurses, they needed somebody, things like that. So we picked up one in Marine City also. So that is, so you can always do projects that makes sense for the rental purposes. Or if you are in certain neighborhoods like South Warren, or certain portions of Macomb Township, like Mount Clemens maybe, and Detroit, if you're comfortable and if you feel that's right thing to do, then there are Section 8 or low income housing as well. And there are VA and other types of housing programs as well. So again, as long as it depends on your risk tolerance and your comfort level also. And we do funds for duplex, triplex, fourplex, 10 units, things like that as well. Again, people use our money, and we funded a project maybe a year ago, 28-unit building, and partly fire damage, so we funded portion of the purchase. The buyer put 100 grand, we funded the rest on the purchase. It's a big undertaking. I think it's about $300,000-$400,000 we have budget on that one for all the 28 units. Everything is new, pretty much new electrical, plumbing from rough stage, new drywall, everything. So again, if it's a financial sense and you have a capacity to handle a project like that, so we can always think an apartment type project also. Okay, I have some examples to show for cash flow purposes. I have sometimes people come and ask me, I forgot the city, maybe Clarkston somewhere. They say they're buying it for $200,000, $80,000 for rehab. It could be worth $300,000, but the cash flow is only like $1,500 or $2,000 a month, $2,500 a month. But if you correct for taxes, insurance, there's probably $1,000 left, and if you pay us off, it's a negative cash flow. So I kind of refuse to fund it, even though they try to convince me that they will refinance and all those. But sometimes we don't fund if we feel the numbers are not right, because some of you are very young. Me too. I am also young too, even though I have some gray hair. I have seen market go up and down. So sometimes people who are in the business in the last 5 years, 7 years, they always think everything goes up. It's like teenagers. They always think they'll be always strong, but eventually they have to realize things goes up and down. We don't know when it will go down. Okay, so always make sure the cash flow is there. Don't think of appreciation all the time. Appreciation is a bonus, but I know people who have done 100 flips, 200 flips, 300 flips. Some of them went bankrupt when the market went south, because unfortunately you can't always bet market going up. I hope and pray you all want the market to go up, but I don't know. So you have to make sure the cash flow is there. Okay. So when you get rental, make sure that the cash flow is there, and if you have an appreciation, great. That's your bonus for your pocket. I think I talked about Section 8 rental. Sometimes people ask me, I don't have much money, what do I do? Maybe wholesaling is an option for you, or maybe work with someone else, either for money or just for experience purposes, part-time. Work with them, get some experience in your hand. Don't be nervous, because each of us has a different talent. When I met Dakota the first time in a coffee shop, I was so formally dressed, I was a little bit intimidated when I was not formally dressed at that time. So everybody has a different strength. You may be more good looking than I am, you may be more handsome than I am. So don't get intimidated. Money is green, that much I know, and vitamin M is what matters, right? So And if you don't know how to speak good English, I'm a good example. I don't know how to speak good English too, you know. So treat me as an inspiration too. And if you think you studied a lot, look at me. Unfortunately, I studied PhD in mechanical engineering, you know. I did 4 years of mechanical engineering, 2 years of masters in design engineering, mechanical engineering, another 4 years of, maybe 4.5 years of PhD in mechanical engineering. And I studied a lot. I'm not discussing education, you know. I tell my kids, you have to study in college, you know. I'm not discouraging education. Education is important because it helps you to think properly. But if you're a person who can think properly, great. But if you have a good education, don't have a good education, don't get intimidated, okay? In fact, somebody told me the more you study, the less money you make because you will end up in analyzing a lot, you know. So I remember when I was right out of high school, probably I got my first project, a vacant land, right? Then when you start getting more education, you tend to analyze too many things, especially after getting PhD, you will analyze everything to death, right? So you took in water, and you will see how much viscous is the liquid, is it Newtonian fluid or non-Newtonian fluid, how much is the density, you try to analyze everything under the sun. What will happen when the temperatures goes up and down, right? Unfortunately, I still have the habit, when I do dishwasher at home, I try to arrange in such a way the fluid flows well, because unfortunately I studied CFD, you know, how the fluid flow, interaction with the vessels. So if you're an overeducated like me, it's okay, you can still do real estate. And if you're an undereducated, you can do real estate, okay? So education is not a problem. Just make sure you take a good understanding of risk, okay? So I think we have to understand the difference between jumping and also not to jump, right? So I could be a person who can read 100 books on how to swim, but I can never be like a Michael Phillips, right? You have to first at least get into water, get your feet wet, do some amount of swimming, right? So it doesn't matter if you attend 100 real estate programs, but please make an effort to make a step. But again, the other thing is don't jump also. Don't do bungee jumping or don't jump on a 20 feet as if you had experienced it. You will get hurt very badly, okay? So I would encourage you to think, have fear, but also understand the risk involved in a project or a process, okay? And make some educated decisions, okay? That's one of the reasons I said when you do your first project, do a project which is a little bit easier and low risk, okay? So I think that's about overall about real estate. The few other things I would encourage you to think is try to build the contacts of contractors and try to build contacts of some agents, title companies, someone who can help you, guide you, and try to attend some associations, listen to podcasts, listen to YouTube maybe where you can learn. Again, don't believe everything that you see, okay? Just because someone said I made 50,000, that is not, they won't make 50,000 on every transaction, okay? Probably it's like, I don't know, some of you might have dated one point of time, you put your best cologne, best perfume, you dress so nice, right? Without tummy, with tummy, right? Oh, you try to do like this, right? But, so don't get intimidated by courses or by people, okay? Just make sure you make a right decision that fits your needs, okay? See, just because somebody is in a different phase of real estate doesn't mean you can't do real estate, okay? Just think of the KFC guy. He started when he was like 60 and he became multi-millionaire, right? So age is not a factor also. You can always think of Facebook and Michael Dell, all these guys started when they're 18s. You know, they make extremely wealthy. So if you're young, old, it doesn't matter. As long as you plan, have an educated decisions, you will do well in real estate. So have a good connection with agents, wholesalers, title companies, contractors, and then be open-minded, you know. So sometimes we all have including myself, we have a stubborn thinking, you know. If I want to go to certain portion, I always go on Southville, I won't go another road, you know. That is like stubborn thinking, right? But what happens when there's a snow or an accident? use GPS or some way to go around, correct? So same thing in real estate. If you get stuck, if you couldn't reach, wholesaling is not working for you, rehabbing is not working for you, rental is not working for you, that doesn't mean you are a failure or real estate is a failure. Find a different path, okay? So failure is not a person, failure is just an event. Just always think failure is an event, okay? I think that's pretty much mostly I wanted to talk about. I had quite a few examples. And the other thing is just try to prioritize your time and money. Time will go. We all think we want to do a lot in life, but time will keep going. So try to prioritize your time. I have few examples. I think this would all make sense if I can show as a slide. I think pretty much those are the things I wanted to cover. So if you have any questions, I can take your questions. If not, I can hang out and answer the questions as well later. And I have my contact information on the sheet, at the top of the sheet as well. Thank you for listening, and if you have any questions, I can answer them for you guys. Yeah. He wanted to know, for a loan, do we have a credit score or any other requirements? I guess I have to take a long approach for this one because if you go for a traditional loan, like institutions where you get the best rate, 4%, 5%, 6%, 7%, where you want to get the best rate, then I guess you need a good credit score, a good debt income ratio, and all those things comes into picture, okay? But if you're borrowing from someone like me, who could be a private lender, hard money lender, everyone is different, okay? So I have lent in the past without looking into too much on the credit score and things like that. But because of some situations, we started collecting those informations, okay? I'll explain a little bit the reasons why we did that, okay? This may not apply for everyone, but I just want to share why we have to do it. See, in the past, we never got a credit score or credit history from somebody. But what happened is we are in the business for funding, and Eric, you are in the business for fixing, selling, or rehabbing, rent it out and sell it to somebody as a turnkey, okay? But the challenge we had was sometimes when people don't file taxes, I tell people whether you have zero income, 1 million a year income, 20,000 a year income, 50,000 a year income, still file taxes, right? Because I had a situation where the gentleman had a very good job. I think his tax, so I think his income was like 200 to 50,000. So I think he went into unemployment situation, he didn't file taxes. And then later on we went and funded his real estate project. So what IRS did was somehow they have a way, government has a smarter, lot more way to catch us if they want to. So I think they eventually found out this guy owns a property in his name or his LLC name, and he never filed taxes in the last 2 years, and your income used to be 250 whatever, and because of that you have to pay like $120,000 in back taxes including fines. Guess what? Government has a lead priority before us. The way it got found out is we funded the loan, we have it. When they were about to sell, the title company found out he can't sell because the government found the lien and they put a lien on the property, right? So then of course we eventually we took that buyer back out, and then he has to file taxes and pay some fines and get it resolved, okay? So it's not like we don't look for a certain income. I have people who show an income of $1 million a year income. I have people who show $10,000 a year income. I have people who show $70,000 income. Okay, but as long as you have a reasonable tax return that should be filed consistent, at least for the last 2 years, we're okay. So to answer your question, we just want a valid tax return, valid bank statements, because when we have to give a rehab money, we have to give us always as a check, so you have to deposit them. So if you don't have a bank account, then it's a problem. So we look for a driver's license and things like that. But we are not basing on any specific credit score, but just want to make sure we don't get into other legal issues outside of funding. I hope I answered Eric's question. Go ahead.
To piggyback off of that, when you said the government had priority, so do you not secure the debt to the property, like your debt?
So always remember, our loan has been secured with a mortgage, correct?
Yeah.
But when government files a lien, our mortgage is secondary.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Me too, I didn't know until that issue happened 2 years ago. So we had a few issues like that. I can tell you a big history on different reasons. So that's why we collect all these documents. I have someone who can help me to quickly go through all this. That's why we collect a little over $1,000 that we call a documentation processing and all this, because I have someone looks at the title, looks at your documents. We're not worried about if your credit score is 580, 520, 790, 780. The higher a credit score helps for different purposes. We may give you 70%, we have money instead of 50%, right? Instead of 75% of the purchase price, we may give you 80%. But at least in a big picture, we're not going to stop you from funding, okay? As long as, you do all these so you don't get into trouble. Our goal is to very simple. We want to give you money, we want you to make money, we want you to be happy, and then do more deals with us. Because you make money, we make money, we all happy. That's all we want. So that's the reason we collect documents. I hope I answered the question. It's a lot more complexity. I have people with the businesses and things like that. I have, because I gone through a lot of this because of my experience. That's why we started collecting these documents. Just to make sure we don't get into trouble, that's all. And unfortunately here and there, we couldn't fund it. Sometimes I have in those circumstances, they may have their girlfriend buy on their name and things like that, or their sister may buy, but it's up to them, as long as they're willing to give documents to us. I have someone, he said, oh, my girlfriend has everything clean in her account. Then I said, okay, no problem, as long as she can give all the documents and sign, I'm okay. So we funded like that, I had somebody say, hey, my cousin, he has everything clean. Okay, if he's okay with that. So again, it's up to you, so I hope I answered that question. But of course, someone who's relatively new in business of lending, they may just give money like that without worrying too much, because they probably have not gone through, because I have gone through ups and downs and issues, so it all depends on the person. Good, Eddie.
How much experience does someone have to have before you enter?
0 to infinity, right? The only thing I encourage is, I know people don't listen to me, that's fine, that's a human nature. We have our limitations on willing to take advice, right? Even though I know I have to do 10,000 steps every day, probably I don't do it every day, unfortunately. Knowing and doing are two different things. We're all humans, okay? That's what makes this world a beautiful place to live. So experience-wise, the only thing I tell people is, if you don't have much experience, or anybody that don't have much experience, if you remember earlier I said, take a smaller project, okay? And make sure you have enough cash reserve to do the project, okay? If you have only $10,000 and your rehab is, let's say you have only $20,000 and you're living on a very tight budget outside of that one, please disclose to someone like me, because unfortunately people don't tell the truth. And later I found out it's hard for them and me both ways, okay? I can tell you some weird stories just to keep you entertained if you want. The reason is, I have somebody fake bank statements. I don't know why they do it. And it's been a year and a half, nothing was done on the house squad. Okay? He keeps telling different excuses. And unfortunately, I tried to work with him, I couldn't, we took over the house. The reason is, he thought he will get a bonus from his job, his wife may get something from someone, is supposed to get 50,000. His aunt is supposed to inherit, and she's not died, unfortunately. Sorry, but but the thing is, you can't do a business like that. You should be transparent. I would have told. So I tell people like that. See, there is a lady who we funded a few months ago, grant money. She said, "Hey, I used to have a job. I don't have a job, but my income is up and down because I do seasonal work and things like that. What do I do?" I gave a few suggestions. Can you take a HELOC on your primary residence if you are allowed to do it, or can your mom, dad, or significant other, can they give you a loan, right? Then she came back to me and said, "Hey, my mom is willing to loan me like 40 grand. There you go." But she bought in her name the project, right? But then her mom financed, and I think they have an arrangement where they use our money, pay off our interest and all those, and they split the profit, right? So they made like 25, 30,000. So mom made 15, she made 15. So I mean, it's all good, right? So I would encourage you to think in a way which makes more sense to you, okay? But please don't make to lie because it hurts you and us. It's not a good situation because real estate is not like pizza, $10 you don't like it, $20 it's over. So unfortunately it's a very hurts for everyone. Did that answer your question, Eddie? Sorry, go ahead.
Is there like a minimum profit margin that you should look for in real estate to give you like a buffer rooms?
I didn't get your name, sorry.
Tyler.
Yeah. So Tyler is a fantastic question. It's a specific profit margin you look for. I generally say have a minimum margin of $20,000 for a house under 200,000. Okay, and as a house is over 200,000, maybe up to 500,000, then look for $40,000 margin, $50,000 margin. I'll tell you why. Okay, when the market dips 5%, guess what? 5% of $200,000 is 10 grand, right? And then you have to pay property taxes, property insurance. If you think the project will be done in 6 months, it takes 1 year. So 6 months of interest you have to pay, property taxes you have to pay, and the contractor budget you thought is 14,000, now it's 18,000, right? So with $20,000 margin, your profit will at least be $10 that you come here and have a pizza and listen to me, right? So I would suggest any project less than 200,000, you should target $20,000 profit minimum. As much as I talk, I have done projects myself. End of the day, I made like $156 after 1 year, because of issues that go out of control. Just for one simple example, I'll tell you. I told the guy to change the sump pump. It was working, but it was not working properly. The guy who came, he removed the sump pump. Looks like he didn't have some wire to put in. He went on a vacation for a week, and it rained, it flooded. Nobody went there for a week. I finished the basement, new carpet, everything. After 2 weeks, guess what happened? Like $7,000, $8,000 loss. Of course, that guy said, it's not my mistake. I wish he left it like that, right? I can fight, argue, go to court, it doesn't matter. These are all debatable items. You can always say, I didn't change it, blah, blah, blah. Anything can be done, right? So I suggest keep a profit of at least $20,000. So if things goes out of your control. I did a project in Beverly Hills. I have a lot of weird stories. One day when you're rehabbing, we had somebody come and knock. I said, what's up? It's like a movie. Imagine, James Bond, right? They said, you're from FBI. We thought, I said, I know. Please don't joke. Tell us why you were here, right? Who will come knock when you're rehabbing your house? They said FBI. So I told them, yeah, we are from really FBI. I said, do you mind if I show you a license? He said, we want to walk through your house because there's an issue in the house. I said, yeah, we have the new order, doesn't matter. So I told, do you mind if I come here tomorrow? They said, you shouldn't do anything else in the house. I said, yes. I just wanted to call FBI office in that site. And I think we went there in person. We took a picture of Zed and showed, is he a real person? Yeah, he's an FBI officer. I told them our house address. Apparently the guy who lived there a while ago, he was doing some kind of business, whatever. And there was a dip, he had some money at the back wall and said a drywall or something. So they wanted to make sure they also use tip that there may be some gold or something. So they wanted to break some portions of drywall and check, right? So you never know. I have a lot of these weird stories to tell because I have done enough transactions in my life. Not too many, but decent enough transactions. So have at least $20,000 margin for a smaller project, 20 to if it's 40, 50,000 for bigger project, and more than 50,000 keep a higher profit. I hope I answered your question.
Without the question, what is your interest rate on the online? Percent?
Sorry? Noriko. So Noriko has an interesting question. What's the interest rate? I'm going to give you a two-way answer for this. Okay. So her question is, what is the interest rates for a hard money loan? Okay. So private money, hard money lenders normally charge 10% to 15%. That's the general range. Okay. And of course, there is some websites where we can go that they can give you 10%, 12% also. Okay. And some lenders charge 2 points, 3 points. Sometimes they charge a few $100 or a couple of $1,000s for passing the loan. Okay. So generally, our interest rate is about 1%, a little bit less than 1% a month, or is it like 1.1% per month? Okay. And then normally we charge 2 points for a general loan. If it's a large loan, very small loan, the rates points could be different. And if it's simple single member LLC, straightforward residential project, we may charge like $1,000 to $1,200 for the processing fee because we have to give the documents to someone to do all the verification. Okay, so I hope I answered your question in terms of cost. The other answer I want you to think is opportunity cost. Okay, this may or may not apply for you as a person, but I'm just telling in general. Okay. So the way I look at it is, even now in my car I have a coupon for Maya, 50 cents off on a banana, right? So even now I still, wherever I go shopping, the other day I went for Maya, I was looking to buy red delicious apple, but I saw Fiji apple on sale for $1.29 a pound, right? $1 off. So normally for me it doesn't matter which apple I have to buy, so it's okay. I spotted a different type of apple, which is good. Saving is very important. But when it comes to a business point of view, I want you to encourage you to think in a way which is best for the particular circumstances, right? There are instances I had somebody who had like a $50,000 margin on a project, okay? I gave all the terms like 2 points, 1,200 or so for the processing fee. He said 3 months for the project, so let's say about 3,000. So our cost was about $6,000-7,000. Unfortunately, a few months later, I saw he never did the deal with me or with anybody else because he's always worried he has to pay $6,000-7,000 for someone. He forgot to think he can still make a $30,000 after paying somebody like me. So again, this may or may not apply to you, but in general on a business, I always encourage you to think in a way, if borrowing the money makes sense. There are times I don't even give a loan to somebody. I told, like you asked the question, minimum profit. I see that too much work in the house. I don't think you can do it 3 months. It will take 7-8 months to do the rehab. Okay, and the rehab cost is not 40,000. I estimated 60,000. So the chances of you making profit is very low. So I won't even fund this house. Okay, I have denied some loans like that too. So when you come to business, I want to encourage you to think, put everything. Is Eric is giving you a loan? Eddie is giving you a loan. Compare, see what makes financial sense for you. And if it's still worthwhile for you to do the transaction, do it. But if not, just leave it. That's it. I hope I answered your question.
What's your minimum loan size?
So the minimum loan size is, there's no minimum loan size. Thank you. So Eddie asked a question, what is the minimum loan size? We have given a loan of $10,000, $15,000, $20,000. I can give you some scenarios why they ended up did it. They had their own money, bought a home in St. Clair Shores, they rehabbed it, finished it, they're about to sell the home. The new buyer did an inspection, they did a sewer inspection from the inside the home towards the street, and they found that there's a big blockage, and they don't want to buy. I think they backed out of the offer. He had another buyer. Guess what? They also did a sewer inspection, and they also want to be fixed. So we didn't have a 7,000-8,000 to do it because the sewer on this side of the road is cheaper. The sewer is on the other side of the road. You have to pay for the cost of breaking and all those on the road and stuff like that. So he needed like 10 grand to do. So we gave refinance the home, and we gave a loan for 10 grand. I think eventually it costed them 14,000 because of the $1,200, 2 points, and it took some time for them to finish. Maybe it was like 13,000. So if you look at that time, it looks as if it's a 30% because it's borrowing 10 grand, but we end up in collecting 13,000. But the problem is they don't have any other solution, right? At least they couldn't find another solution. That's all. So we don't have a minimum loan amount, but it all depends on your circumstances to borrow. I had recently, I think in South Lion, it's a brand new construction. He used his own money. It's almost like $500,000 he put in, but he needed the last 25,000 because he ran out of money to the driveway and to get the final occupancy permit. So it's easy loan, right? It's a brand new construction. So there's no minimum, but as long as it makes sense for you to borrow, you borrow the loan. That's all. I hope I answered your question. Any other questions?
You mentioned a lot of the margins and things for flips, but what about your financing for like a buy and hold? How would you structure that? Coming out of the cash flow, I assume?
So for buy and hold, you were right. We look at cash flow, and also we look at the market value in case if they couldn't cash flow for. Thank you. I keep forgetting. Thanks for remembering me. So Dakota had a question where for flip we look at the margin, but for a rehab, how do we do it? So even for a rehab meant for rental, I would encourage you to think as if as a flip loan also. The reason is, if you don't, I have people who started as a rehab, as a rental, they decided to sell it as a flip because a neighbor across the street wanted a daughter to move, cousin to move, and things like that. So they ended up in selling. So I encourage you to think as a flip. On top of it, I just make sure the cash flow is there too. I hope I answered the question. Go ahead.
When you're assessing a deal, what's the main things you're looking at to see if the deal makes sense?
Taylor, the question was, when do you decide the deal makes sense to fund, right? So the main thing is I encourage just to make sure your numbers are there, your purchase price, rehab cost, holding cost, and like at least $20,000 margin call. If it's below 200,000. So you make sure you have all those factored in. If it makes sense to you, then reach out to me or somebody else who's willing to loan to you, and then they can help you to fund it. So it's very, very important sometimes people say timing is everything also. You don't go out and make a left turn just you want to do a left turn. You look for the cards, so people say, oh, look for, but no, you told me only to look for cards, but you never told me to look, hey, you look for visibility, right? And look for other people's error too. As much as weird, today I was about to leave here, I told Eddie I will come at least by 6:45. I have last minute crisis, right? I was here in the parking lot of the side, on this narrow gap. Someone came on a truck and it like this. I can't take a reverse and go on a road. They were trying to do this. Then I called them. I said, hey, I don't know. So I went and told them, can you please move your vehicle? That's how real estate is. Sometimes it's supposed to be perfect, but it wouldn't. So just be prepared mentally. Don't get stressed out though, but you have to prepare the time. Okay, thank you all for listening. Appreciate your patience and listening. I hope I had value to your mind. So back to Eddie.
All right. Why don't we thank Saravanan one more time for coming out and speaking to us tonight. What is your contact information? And remember, it's going out not just to people here, but on YouTube. So what's the best contact information for you? All right. So his phone number, you might want to write this down. His phone number is 248-703-9272. Once again, his telephone number is 248-703-9272. His email is Saravanan, which is SARAVANAN. I'm going to repeat it again. SARAVANAN at the best MI for Michigan, thebestmihomes.com. His website is the best MI for Michigan, thebestmihomes.com. And I would encourage you, even if you have your own private lender, to reach out to Saravanan and at least have a conversation with him, because as I'm sure Saravanan will tell you, back in 2008, a lot of hard money lenders dried up overnight. Am I right, Saravanan? So you can never have too many sources of private money or hard money lenders. So again, I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. As we always do, before we wrap up, we allow anyone that has any real estate related announcements they want to make to come up and make it. So does anyone have any deals or any real estate related announcements that they want to make? What'd you say?
I said I would.
Yeah, I would. All right. Okay, if not, remember, we always have our meetings right here at Shields, always on the third Tuesday of every month, always at 7 p.m., always free, a different speaker on a different topic every single month. Even though our information is available for free over YouTube, we always encourage people to come out live so that they can network. Thank you very much.